Today is Friday, May 26th, and we're going to go around the bases with our MLB insider at the New York Post, Jon Heyman. Jon, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well. We're right into Memorial Day weekend. A lot of people are going to enjoy this 3-day break, but there's a lot of great baseball to happen this weekend, obviously. But let's start off with our first topic here. We saw Aaron Judge hit an absolutely clutch home run in the first game of a 3-game set against the Orioles, against one of the best closers in Batista. What do you make of Aaron Judge's season thus far? After coming off the IL, he's really crushed the ball lately.
Yeah, I hope people aren't disappointed. And this is a topic I talk about an awful lot, but I think we need a reminder and we need not to take this guy for granted. He is the best hitter in baseball in my mind and the best position player. I'm not counting Ohtani because he's a pitcher as well. So Ohtani's a whole nother category. But in terms of who's the best hitter in baseball, and I saw Mark DeRosa do this on MLB Network this week, he had his top five. I'm going to give my top seven right now. Judge number one. So I agreed with D-Row. He is the top hitter in baseball right now. Once again, leading and slugging at 630, leading in OPS at 1,032. So, he's probably not going to hit 62 home runs again, but he is amazing. My list, and I'm going to put seven because I can't narrow it down to five. Judge one, Trout two. Still love Trout. That was a tough one, but all-time great. Soto three. A lot of people have been dissing him, but 156 OPS plus lifetime is higher than DiMaggio, Aaron, and Mays by a point, I know, but higher than those three all-time greats. Freddie Freeman, my number four. Paul Goldschmidt, who's often been compared to him, number five. I've got Yordan Alvarez, number six. Incredible, even hits lefties. And Acuna, who looks like the NL MVP right now, as number seven. So couldn't boil it down to five, but Judge still tops the list. Amazing. Glad you brought up the home run against Batista. I was there. Incredible. He also got the first walk against Yennier Cano the next day. So, let's just not take this guy for granted. He is incredible. And at $360 million, he is a bargain. And I'm not saying that lightly. He is a bargain. Look at the other signings and what they got and what they are doing. Now, I do think Trey Turner is going to come around. I think Xander Bogaerts is going to be very good. Dansby Swanson, I love him, but they're not Aaron Judge. And $360 million, and I don't say this lightly, that's a bargain.
Yeah, you say that lightly, like it's a bargain for 360 million, but it's really amazing when you rattle off that list. There's so many great names there, and obviously a lot of fans will have debate about who's the best position player and who's the best hitter in baseball. But right now you can't argue. Aaron Judge is just absolutely tearing the cover off the ball right now. I wanted to follow up here, Jon. Obviously, the Yankees lost 2 out of 3 to the Baltimore Orioles, and they're looking up at the Orioles in the AL East. And you wrote a column earlier this week about the beast of the AL East and how tough this division really is. What more can you say about this Orioles team right now and the way that they are playing? Should we be taking the Orioles more seriously as they can not just contender, but like how they arrived? We knew that they had a lot of years of bad baseball, but it seems like they're playing the best baseball they can right now.
Amazing. They're winning twice as many as they lose. Mike Elias, the GM, has done a terrific job. Obviously, they had some very high draft choices. They did hit on those choices. They put together a great back end of the bullpen after trading their closer last year at the deadline, Jorge Lopez. Cano and Batista are fantastic. I think they've probably done it in a smart way for a relatively small market team. They've built it around the bullpen and the position players. Look, the starting pitching is very, very expensive, as you know. If you look at the Mets team, you know that. But most big market teams have a very expensive rotation. They imported Kyle Gibson for $10 million and otherwise are using basically minimum salary guys for their rotation, and they're getting away with it. I thought this would be an issue for them, but it is really not to this point. And I think there are very few starters right now who throw more than 6 innings anyway. So, to me, maybe these starters are getting overpaid elsewhere. To give somebody $35-40 million and they only throw 5 innings or even 6 innings, is it worth it? I'm not so sure. It's certainly a great luxury to have certainly a Garrett Cole, who's definitely been worth it, and the other guys who are high paid. But the Orioles, I give them credit for doing it on a shoestring, and they've got money in their budget now, and they may be a force at the deadline. And certainly, I think at that point, they'll want to pick up some starting pitching.
Yeah, They obviously, Kyle Gibson last night gave them 2-hit ball last night, shut down the Yankees offense, looked great. And their bullpen, like you said, is also a weapon for them. And the youngsters are playing really, really well. So, and the Rays are still there, obviously, in first. The AL East is going to be it's going to be a battle all year long, it seems like. John, let's go to our next topic here and talk about the New York Mets and their catcher situation. Obviously, young catching phenom Francisco Alvarez has been up here. He's been raking, and he's making his impact on this roster. However, Thomas Nido was just activated off IL yesterday, and Gary Sanchez was DFA'd. Let's talk about this catching situation, the way it's developing right now. You have Alvarez, you have Nido. There's Omar Narvaez, who's working his way back from the IL as well. How do you see this position playing out? Should the Mets keep Francisco Alvarez here every day as their starting catcher?
Well, I mean, to me, this is a controversy that shouldn't be a controversy. And it is a controversy. If you listen to FAN or any other sports station, this is one of the main topics lately. I don't think the Mets need to worry about it for a week or 2 weeks, perhaps, until Narvaez comes back. But, obviously, if Francisco Alvarez is playing anything like this, he needs to stay in the majors and continue as a starting catcher for the team. And Narvaez needs to be just a very good and high-paid backup and mentor to Alvarez. Alvarez has been the best hitting catcher in baseball this month with an OPS over 1,000. He is clearly starring at this point. And unless there's an injury or some major tailspin that's completely unexpected at this point, he's got to stay and he's got to start. And this really should not be a controversy. I'm not sure how it got started as a controversy, but certainly they did have a logjam. DFAing Sanchez relieves that a little bit, but Narvaez is the bigger question because Narvaez has a 2-year deal. He's here again next year with the Mets. And just as Nido has a 2-year deal, it is a little curious why the Mets gave Nido and Narvaez a 2-year deal when they had the top prospect in baseball in Alvarez in their midst. Maybe they didn't expect him to come this quickly. It does appear that way. The other thing is, of course, Nido's contract is rather small, certainly by any major league standard, but by Steve Cohen standards for sure. But still, I think Alvarez has surprised us all, myself included, by being this good this early. He did not look great in spring training. They called him up due to injury. We didn't know whether he was ready. He certainly is ready, needs to stay and to start.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, John, are surprised by the fact, and the controversy came from Alvarez has made such an impact offensively for this team when this offense has struggled quite a bit lately, and they're not getting that run production from the rest of the lineup. Alvarez batting ninth almost every night is getting production there. And I think a lot of fans don't want to see a youngster get set down because there is that we've had this conversation of, do you play the youngsters or do you play the veterans? Yeah. And it seems like Buck does favor those veterans. So what more can you say about that? Like maybe that's where the controversy is coming from a little bit there.
Yeah. I'm not sure who ultimately was making that call in this day and age. Sometimes it comes from the front office to some degree. I also think Vientos should be playing every day. I know Vogelbach has given you about what you expect, but he has a 99 OPS plus, which is about league average, and he walks a lot. That's his main attribute. And when he walks, he clogs the base. Obviously he's about as slow as I am, or a catcher, or, probably not as slow as I am, but as a major league catcher. I understand he's on the roster. He hasn't earned a demotion, but Vientos was absolutely tearing it up at AAA. They've, in my opinion, kind of cooled him off a bit by having him only bat against lefties for the most part. Have him play every day and see if he is that player that we saw at AAA Syracuse. If he's that player or anything close to it, and Alvarez is this player, and we know Beatty is going to be good. He's now the third baseman. This is a team that could be playing 3 rookies who are great. And of course, you've got Mauricio in the minors. He's just adjusting to second base still. We talked about him last week. He's tearing it up offensively, but now has 11 errors. So I could see a little bit of a weight there on Mauricio at this point, but I would play Vientos as well. But Alvarez shouldn't even be a controversy.
Yeah, I totally agree. Francisco Alvarez should be playing every day. And I would hope that he raises out of that ninth spot too, because he can make some damage in that lineup. John, let's go to our next topic here. The AL Central. Obviously not the best division in baseball we're talking about here. A lot of teams that we thought could play better baseball are struggling to start this season. And there could be some trade targets here. There's a lot of great starting pitching here. You wrote about this AL Central pitching and how there could be some trade targets. Could you let us know who are some of those pitchers we should be looking at?
Yeah, you're right. It's mostly the AL Central. I'll throw the NL Central into it as well. That's not a good division either. And they've got some good starting pitchers who could be available for trade in the NL Central too. But AL Central is the main place that could be the trade central, no pun intended. I've got 6 pitchers from both of those divisions who I see as potential trade targets. Now, keep in mind that these are all pitchers on mediocre to bad teams, but in those divisions, those mediocre to bad teams can make the playoffs, right? The winning team in each division makes the playoffs. And if you make the playoffs as a winning team, as winning the division, you don't have to play that first wild card round. So, there is incentive to keep going for these teams. Some of them will obviously hold on to these guys, but the hope is among these contending teams, because there have been so many pitching injuries, that one or more of these teams does decide to become a seller. My order in this is Dylan Cease would be the number one target. He has not had a great year this year, but he is one of the best pitchers in baseball, a young guy, years of control. Feeling is, even if the White Sox sell, not that likely to trade Cease, but he'd be the number one guy if he is available. Corbin Burns also not having his usual year for the Milwaukee Brewers. And the Brewers are an interesting case because last year they were so heavily criticized for trading Josh Hader at the deadline, not only by the fans, but by their own clubhouse. And ultimately their owner really didn't love it either. So right. I think it's probably a long shot that Burns gets traded, although I've seen a lot of speculation regarding this. Certainly they already have Miley hurt. They have Lauer hurt. They have Woodruff hurt. Mm-hmm. Are they really going to hang in there? They are so far. But Burns would be my number 2. Shane Bieber, number 3. The Guardians are not performing like they did last year to this point. That's a team that's fairly clinical. They've had some success. They can deal stars a little bit more easily than Milwaukee probably can. 4th would be Eduardo Rodriguez having a big year for the Tigers. Now, the Tigers still in the race. We didn't expect them to be in the race, even in that weak Central. So give them credit. His value is hurt a bit by the fact he has an opt-out after this year. Will certainly opt out barring injury. That is a negative in trades because when a player has an opt-out, first of all, he's likely gone. Second of all, if he gets hurt, then the team will be stuck with the contract. Not to predict anything negative, but those are the facts. Number 5 is Lucas Giolito. That tells you how deep this is. If Lucas Giolito is number 5, also with the White Sox, if they're not in it, he'd go because he is a free agent after the year. Jordan Montgomery, the former Yankee with the Cardinals, is 6th on the list. Cardinals off to a very, very rough start. Obviously, at this year, they are playing much better now. Nolan Gorman has become a star. They have Arenado. They have Goldschmidt. I doubt they're going to be a seller. If they are a seller, they will have to trade Montgomery. They've tried to lock him up or shown interest in it at least. And he's being a free agent, having Scott Boras as his agent. He's not going to go for a contract now. He's going to play it out and be a free agent. So I think he's still a long shot to go, though, because I expect the Cardinals to stay in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of great pitchers there that you just named that could be possible trade targets if those seasons don't go well for these teams in the AL and NL Central as we go on in the season and we get closer to that trade deadline. Let's bring it all home, John. Let's talk about your disappointing team of the week. Who is it this week?
It's the Toronto Blue Jays, and there's always a big disappointment every week. I think, was it the Padres last week? I don't know.
Yep.
Every week we've got some team that's really underperforming. And while the Jays, as we do this, are still over 500, barely over 500, they're 2-13 in their last 15 games against their division. I understand all the other teams in the division are good. Not only good, better than the Jays right now. They had a team meeting with the players yesterday as we do this. Maybe it will straighten things out, but this team with Bichette and Guerrero, I thought they bulked up. Kiermaier's having a good year. Alex Manoah in the rotation, Barrios in the rotation, Gausman, Kikuchi. I mean, they have good pitching.
Springer,
they have
Chapman.
A great lineup. Yes, Exactly. Springer, Chapman. this team shouldn't be anywhere near 500. So this is my disappointing team of the week. And there were several candidates. There have been a lot of disappointments so far.
Well, John, we appreciate you as always going around the bases. A lot of great stuff going on. Memorial Day weekend is going to be a lot of fun baseball going on this weekend. Appreciate you as always, man.
Right. Good seeing you, Ryan.